This Choircast podcast is brought to you by Heretic 2 by Matthew J. DiStefano. Ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about faith? In Heretic 2, I dive into LGBTQ affirmation, rejecting divine violence, and embracing universalism in a bold post-Christian perspective. If you're done with outdated dogma and want a justice-oriented, inclusive view of spirituality, then this book is for you. Get Heretic 2 wherever books are sold and start rethinking faith today.
The majority of our life is lived in liminal space.
And there's this in-between space, this liminal space.
This liminality that reveals possibility.
I think we're in a liminal moment, but also in a place of transformation. We could actually change as a people.
I have great affection for the church and a troubled relationship with it.
That can't be the gospel because God said to love our neighbors.
Just to be alive in time means that we're on the threshold of the future.
Just to begin questioning is so difficult because you have these voices in your ears telling you that you're not a real Christian.
We don't know what the future looks like. We have to work it out together.
Welcome to the Liminal Living podcast, where we have conversations with those who are going through dark nights or deconstruction.
All right. Well, I guess let's start this. All right. First off, my name is Nolan Rundel. This is my father, Tom Rundel. All right. So he's going to give a little bit of background explanation of where he is at right now and how he's got to be there. Like what sequence of events throughout his life has led him to the point where he's at currently.
Little biography.
Yep. Just a little bit of a background.
I thought I wanted to be a cook in a restaurant for the longest time. I worked in a restaurant for about 5 years as a teenager. And I didn't have any vision or understanding of what I wanted to do with my life. So I just figured that's what I'm going to do because that's what I'm doing. And I can't think of anything else outside of that. And then I kind of got wrangled into the church world and just found a community there and found a calling there and ended up a pastor. And now I've been a pastor for 25 years.
Yep, maybe more. It's definitely been a while.
Yes.
Cool.
It's the only career I've ever had. So that's just kind of led me to here. And I'm in my office right now. So that's where I'm at geographically.
For this discussion, we're going to get into a little bit of a broad concept, but basically life and the meaning of life and where you stand with that. So we're going to go a little bit into your philosophies on life and meaning, and basically meaning in life and where you draw that from.
Okay.
All right, so my first question is, where did your understanding of the concept of life and meaning come from? Did that come from your education? Did that come from experiences you had during your life? Did that come from the people around you? Like, where did that all come from?
The concept of the meaning of life.
Mm-hmm. Sort of a
growing up
question.
in a very religious home, it was just kind of handed to me, and so they're like, this is the meaning and don't question this. Here's all the questions you're allowed to ask, and here's all the answers to those questions, and here's all the proofs for those answers. Stay inside of this little bubble. So it was kind of given to me, but then as you experience more life, like how you perceive the world as when you were younger, it starts to broaden, and I had to really start to, like, you get an experience in your life that doesn't fit into how you understand how life ought to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to then shift like what you think the meaning of life is and how this fits into the overall meaning of life if your previous one didn't have space for it.
I see.
It's kind of evolved over time because you get more experiences, but it started off very small.
I see. That does make sense. So sort of you're basically your experience of life and your meaning of life sort of broadened as your experiences of life broadened. Is what you're saying.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Education and experiences and different communities, traveling, all that kind of stuff just broadens your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. That is cool. All right, let's build upon that. Like, what is the largest thing that has contributed to your meaning of life and what you believe the meaning of life is, essentially, out of everything that you've experienced?
Oh, boy. The largest thing, probably having my own family. That's the biggest thing because when you don't have a family, your world is just wrapped around you and your own self, and you can do whatever you want, go wherever you want to go. There's not a lot of restrictions on it. And then you start to add people into your life that you now become responsible for. It starts to add, it broadens like then who you're looking out for in life, not just me, but now it's almost like there's extensions of me in the people that I love, that I want them to have a good life also, not just me and all the experiences I can accumulate for myself, but now there's these other people in my life that matter even more than my own life, which is hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have a family.
Yeah, I can see that.
But, when you're a teenager, you're just like, I need to know who I am, and you're defining yourself. So there's a very natural self-centeredness that comes with adolescence. And then you introduce into the equation getting married, having kids, and then all of a sudden your concept of self broadens out to the people that you love, and they are a part of the world that you want to see be a better place. So that would probably be the single most expansive thing that's happened to me that broadened out my whole philosophy of life and meaning. Is there's other people out here and they matter. Yes. It like finally gets you to see through someone else's eyes, like, wow, the way that they view the world and what they want to have happen is just as important as mine. And that sense of love just is very different than when it's just you and you're trying to figure things out and you're growing. So
yeah, wow, that's actually really beautiful. But it's cool to see how your experiences of life have shifted and changed over time. That's really cool.
Yeah, they evolve, they move, they change.
Yep, it's not going to be the same throughout your entire life.
Right.
And so I guess that sort of answers my next question, which was, how has your experiences shifted over time? Is there anything else that has contributed to how your experiences of life and the meaning of life have shifted across your lifetime?
Yeah. Like growing up in a very religious household, it was very much about having the correct ideas in your brain about how life ought to be and what is true, and like the whole metaphysic. Like they just kind of handed us a theological bullet point list of what the world is supposed to really be like, and that was then an adopted metaphysic of life. Like, okay, this is just how it is. If you peel back the layers of reality, you're going to see all these things that are described in my theology. And then you get experiences that humble you. Like you go through times of challenge, times of suffering, times that extend you, bring you to your limits. And then your lived experience doesn't match the ideas in your head about how you thought life was. And you were really confident with your ideas. Like, I got all the mental furniture arranged just properly, and then the Titanic sinks and it doesn't matter where the chair is. And it's like, okay, it's lived experience doesn't match my ideas. Do I then ignore my lived experience and just live in my head of all the ideas of what I think is true and right? Or am I going to modify my ideas to match lived experience? And I've recently got like words for that. Like that's what has happened in the evolution of my understanding of the world and meaning, is that my ideas weren't good enough. They weren't big enough to contain all that life is. And so I've had to let go of ideas and hold loosely other ideas in order to make space for actual lived reality. That's a major shift that happened in, I don't know, the course of the last 20 years or so.
Wow, that actually goes really deep. That was a really, really good response. Thank you.
So I'm just cannonballing into the deep end.
Yep. You're getting into everything here, and I like that.
Yeah.
Basically, it's nice to see how basically people's experiences broaden over time. Like a lot of times people who are in the church space are given a very specific set of beliefs that they have to adhere to. And then when their actual life experiences don't align with that, then sometimes they don't know what to do. Personally, I've seen that in some of my friends. Like when life experiences don't match what they were given to believe, like given to believe, not what they had specifically determined for themselves. Then they were sort of a little bit broken, not really sure where to go from there. And I kind of see that in your response. You weren't sure which one to choose. Do you choose life experiences, or do you choose beliefs that have been given to you? And obviously, for me, I do see a clear answer, but for people who aren't as detached from the actual religious space, they don't see a full clear answer as to which one is more important to them. And really, that's something that you have to determine for yourself, I guess.
Yeah. And it's a way that you stay, like your ideas, if you have the correct ones, it's a psychological blanket that keeps you safe. It's like, I have all the correct ideas and I behave properly and I believe properly. So now I can belong. And it's a comfort at first until, life comes through and like burns your blanket down and you're like, now what do I do? And you don't understand how to fit actual life into the ideas you have about life. And you were taught you're not allowed to question the ideas. And so then it creates this dissonance between your lived experience and your ideas of it. And yeah, but it is a way to keep you safe psychologically. It's a construct that is helpful for a season. It's just not the thing. It's not the goal.
Like, it's helpful to a point, but there's a certain point where it gets to be where it detracts from your actual lived experiences. So
right,
you definitely have to keep a balance there. I apologize. It gave me another error code.
Errors are fun. I don't have an error on my end, so.
There we go. I think it's back. All right. So if you basically had, all right. So sort of building a little bit upon that, do you believe that we sort of build our own life experiences, or do you sort of believe not necessarily that we're given them, but that there are certain things that are going to be set that we cannot alter? It's sort of a little bit of a broad question, and you can take that where you would like, but
I think that meaning is created through your culture and your community, and then you're going to take that raw material and shape it into something that works for you. Because you're like, if you go across the globe to someone who grew up in a rural town in India under a totally different religion and culture than we do, their outlook on life is going to be very different than the ones who grew up in like rural or suburbia or urban Western America. And those things are hard to see outside of until you actually travel around and see other people in action. And so I think we do take, like, our Western civilization is going to hand us raw materials of how we're going to create a life and meaning out of that. And then the specific community of like family and friends that we grew up in, they're going to hand us values. Like, these are the things that are important to us. If you want to belong with us, then you embrace these things. And so then they're going to hand those to you. But then each individual is an individual, and they're going to do what they can with those raw materials to kind of shape it into something that pragmatically works for them. Like, how am I going to live? What values do I hold on to? You're probably going to keep the ones that hold you in good graces with the people that are important to you.
Yeah.
To a point, probably. And then the same with, like, it's hard to not have a value of capitalism in the West, because that's how you're going to like support yourself financially for the rest of your life. So you're going to have to use that as a piece. Like, you can have a different economic value system, but you're going to have to work within the one that's given to you if you're going to want to be successful in society and be able to eat and stuff. So culture is going to hand you a lot of raw materials. Your community is going to hand you a lot of raw materials. And then it's up to you to try and craft something workable and something meaningful out of all those things for the life that you're going to live in the moment. That's kind of what I think. I think you do make it, but it's not just up to you. Like, you're going to be handed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I do sort of agree with that. Like, your experiences are definitely going to be different depending on where you grew up. And those values are inherently going to stay with you, at least some of them, throughout the rest of your life. And those values are going to be different dependent on your geographic location, the people around you, and other external factors. So I definitely see that. That was a very good logic-based response. I like it.
I am logical.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let me look at my notes here real quick. All right, we're going to sort of build a little bit upon that again. But how much do you think work, career, and the people around you affect your view on the meaning of life and what life is, essentially?
I would say a lot, because that's going to be the community that's handing you some raw materials.
Yeah.
You're going to have some kind of like a natural bent in your personality towards specific things. Like I was bent towards the helps. So I was going to be either a teacher, counselor, pastor, or something along those lines. And so you have like these natural bents in your own personality that lean you in a specific way. But you're going to then be adopting the value systems around you in order to work within, like pragmatically work within the systems that are around you. You can't like totally get rid of capitalistic value systems and then go off and try in a capitalistic society to have a career built on that. It's going to be a lot harder. So you're going to have to take something out of there. But then there's going to be areas, eventually you're going to outgrow some of the value systems that are around you. And you'll find that your community shifts or your career shifts. A lot of people call this like midlife crisis. Like they hit like a moment or like, oh crap, I got to like rethink my entire existence now.
Again, that's sort of built into societies nowadays.
Yeah, it's like built in, but you outgrow your previous held value systems or communities or whatever. And so people will like leave church or leave religion or find a different friend group or a career or something along those lines, because you're evolving and shifting and changing. And I think as much as things are handed to us, and you have to stay within these boundaries in order to stay within the good graces of whatever community you find yourself in, sometimes you do outgrow those communities and you need to make some major shifts and changes. And so it's going to evolve and change, and you're going to keep molding it as you go, I think. But it can be really confusing to experience an outgrowing of your old value systems. And when you don't have a new one set up yet, you just know you don't belong anymore in the previous, and then you're trying to figure out what's the new thing look like, and then you're stuck in between. And that's never fun. But those are the most challenging times, when you've outgrown the old thing and you haven't grown into a new thing yet, and you're just kind of adrift, wondering what am I going to do? What do I believe? Who am I? All those big questions. You get into existential angst stuff, and you're just like, oh gosh, this is real. So.
Yeah. It's definitely sort of a weird point where you're sort of outgrowing one thing, but not sort of fully into another, or have a plan of where you're going further. So I definitely see that in a lot of people.
Yeah, it happens more often than we want, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so. All right, now stemming a little bit upon that again, do you believe that there is some form of external factor above all of the sort of logic-based things that we've talked about so far that affect things, sort of like ideas and concepts of God and alternate reality, sort of more philosophical concepts such as that? How much do you think those actually affect views on reality? And do you think they hold merit and value?
I think there's some things that are not logical, but they're very real. Like the experience of love and friendship and romance is something that it's really hard to define what that is, but you know it when you see it, you know it when you feel it, you experience it. That is something that really shapes life tremendously. When you, I'm not just talking romantically, but when you actually love other people in a community or friendship or even romantic partners, like that is something that doesn't necessarily fit into a nice logical box. It tends to be something that happens to you also. Like you just find that you are with these friends now, and it's like, it's not something that you like, you can't go to the store and like hand pick all your friends and what they're going to be like. And, like when I met your mom, like I didn't see that coming. It was just like, well, there's the woman I'm going to marry. And it's like, that happened to me. So love is something that is outside of me and
it's
above
sort of external.
me. Yeah, it's very external because it wasn't something I was like looking for that day. It just like hit me really hard that day, and it was like, whoa, this is going to change everything. So there's things like that. There's things like we can call it coincidences. It's like, well, it just so happened that I happened to be at the store at this time and I ran into so-and-so and they had this job opportunity for me. And so there's things like that influence the direction of our life. They're very few and far between, but they do have a tremendous influence, and they seem to come from the outside or above what people might call, God or universe or direction or whatever they're going to call it. It seems like there's an external force acting upon our lives at certain points to help us along our way. A lot of people have different understandings of what that could be and how it works and all that kind of stuff. And being a pastor for 25 years and going all the way to get a doctorate in this stuff, I still don't have all the answers. I just know that there is something that does seem to guide us along our way. Almost like in every moment, there's a possibility for good and beautiful and true things that happen. And that is what humans have been trying to label with religious language for a long time, is like the possibility for good things to happen in the moment. So whatever you want to call that possibility, I think that is an external from us, but also involving us, meeting us, and then asking of us, like, here's a possibility. What do you want to do with it? So it's not like a puppet strings marionette manipulation of our life so much as an invitation to the possibility of how can we make this world better, more beautiful? How can we bring about more truth in the world? There's a possibility for that in every single moment, and I think it invites us. So it's external, it's above, but also meeting us. Some people might call it internal as well, but not of us, but something or something.
Yeah.
I'm less.
Yeah, that was a very, very deep response. I really, really, really like that.
Well, as soon as you start putting labels on it, it gets messy.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like, it doesn't matter what you label something if the contents don't change because of the label on the outside. We get really obsessed with labels, and I think labels are helpful, so you know what you're dealing with sometimes, but it doesn't change the essence and the contents of what's inside.
Mm-hmm. Like, they're helpful to a point, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yes. Like, as we've seen through history, there's been multiple different crises and wars just because of different names. Like, you could have the exact same thing, the exact same concept. It's just if there's a separate label for one and a different label for the other, there's definitely going to be conflict there, even if they're based upon the exact same concepts, ideas, and values. Even just one separate name affects things to that degree.
Yeah, people kill each other over labels.
Yep. It's literally just a name. You don't need to take it that far. But as we've seen throughout history, well, it's been taken that far many times.
Many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, yeah.
These are good questions.
Thank you.
They're deep.
That was a very good answer. You've provided really, really deep and really, really good answers so far. I really appreciate this.
I think a lot.
All right, let's move on to my next question here. How much and to what degree do you think actual art, beauty, and entertainment apply to philosophical views of life? And not necessarily just philosophical views of life, but views of meaning in general. How do you think those apply?
I think an encounter with beauty is an encounter with something outside of yourself that's greater than yourself. And those things help us break out of the cognitive concepts and labels that we've put on life. Like, we live life like scientists, we like to kill everything and then dissect it and label it. And then it's like, okay, now we know how it works. And that's one way to treat a frog, but then you can run into a bullfrog in a swamp out on a hike, and that's an entirely different way to encounter a frog.
Yeah.
And, there's a value to the scientific method and understanding. Mm-hmm. I'm a very skeptical, critical, logical thinker myself. Mm-hmm. But I think art and entertainment and beauty and music, like, they almost speak a language that's universal, that we don't have to argue over, if the Beatles are a good band. Like, I think 95% of people are going to say the Beatles were a really good band. They wrote
whether
good
you
music.
like their music or not, you cannot disregard the fact that they were arguably a good band.
Yeah, and like, you can read their lyrics, I don't know if you've ever tried, like, you just read lyrics and you're like, yeah, that's not good. But then you listen to the music and then the lyrics hit you in a different way, even though you just read it. And it's like, but there's something about the music and the emotion that's communicated in music.
Absolutely.
That transcends it. So
yeah, it's sort of the personal touch. It's sort of like the personal value and the actual emotional connection that's there that sort of gives things their beauty sometimes. It's, again, something that kind of hallmarks back to one of your previous responses. It's something external, not something we can physically touch, but it's there nonetheless.
Yeah. And I think it hits a different part of your humanity. Like, we are cognitive beings. We have brains. You know, we've evolved from lizards all the way to, like, mammals. We have different portions of our brain, lizard brain, all the way to mammalian brain. And so, like, if we really want to touch a different part of our humanity that hits the nervous system and, like, the body and all of that kind of stuff, then you need a different language than just the cognitive. And I think art and beauty and nature and music and all that kind of stuff, it speaks the language that our bodies know, that it's like bypasses the brain and comes in the side door, and you don't have to argue with it because you're just experiencing it. You're not trying to label. Like, when you're at a concert, you're not trying to label this like, okay, so we're all experiencing, like, a collective human, you know, brainwave delta pattern thing that's happening. You're not thinking about that. Even if it's true, you don't care. It's like, this is really cool. We're all, like, singing the same song or experiencing the same moment. And so I think it taps us into the truth that can't be communicated via cognitive, science-based stuff. That's like, if you were to look at, you know, a prism and you see all the light, you know, prisming, you're like, that's beautiful. We all agree that this is beautiful. Yeah. But then if you look at, like, you know, your dog just laid a big steamer and it's, like, doing this thing and then the light's coming through, you're going to say that's not, but somehow this one is, even though it's prisming the light in the same way. Like, there's just something universal that we's like, this isn't beautiful, this is beautiful. There's a lot of arguments about, you know, which aesthetics theories are going to apply, but there seems to be a universal of what is beautiful and what isn't beautiful when it comes to certain areas of nature and music and beauty. We know these things, and they communicate to us on deeper levels than cognitive stuff, because it gets right past the brain, right to the body and the nervous system, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And there's some people that will sort of chalk that up to be emotional responses are different releases of specific chemicals in your brain. And yes, that is the case, but I think it goes a lot further than that. It goes beyond that. There's much more than just chemical releases in the brain that alter our physical feelings, moods, and all of that. Although they do alter our physical feelings and moods, you can go a step further, or really before that, and say, well, what are moods in general? Why do we have these certain feelings? And then some people even go further than that to say that we do have specific feelings due to specific experiences that our ancestors have had. We have specific things baked inside of us. And moreover, a lot of those processes and emotions are just there to simply keep us alive, because it gives us a sense of what's dangerous, what's not, what's right, and what's wrong. But I definitely believe, as you said, there's much more to it than just the physical. It goes into stuff that we don't fully know about yet, and I don't know if humanity ever will.
Yeah. And your nervous system is, like, trauma is damage to the nervous system that's stored in the body. And beauty is like the opposite of that. Like, so yes, the things are happening in the brain, but they don't stay there. They travel, they move, they affect you all around.
Like, they affect us in ways that we don't fully know at this point. All right. Now, this one is going to be sort of a little bit of an open-ended question, but do you feel that you have pressure upon you to lead a certain life or have a certain meaning in your life based on societal norms? Now, obviously, we do to some degree, but how so specifically for you? Explain.
Less so now than ever, but I've been actively working to get free from that, because when you're a pastor in an American church system, there is a heavy amount of conform to this or you're out kind of mentality. And so I've journeyed a long time to find a place that doesn't do that. and I can have conversations like this one about what I actually think. Like if you actually sit down with pastors and you get to what they actually think and believe, a lot of them don't buy what they're selling, but they have to say the things in order to keep their jobs. And then the communities are then wrapped around these false narratives that need to be told. And so that is something that that's a value that I grew out of a long time ago, but then I had to adjust the reality of my life to fit that new thing.
Yeah, and that's sort of what took the longest amount of time?
Yes, because there's not many religious spaces allow that kind of thinking. Although I think they would benefit if they did tremendously.
Yes, I definitely agree.
We're taking a quick break here mid-show to let you know of an opportunity that Choir is offering. Are you deconstructing your faith? It's tough, believe me, I know, I've done it. But what if you didn't have to do it alone? Imagine having guides like Jim Palmer, Kristen Dumais, Jennifer Knapp, Brad Jerzak, Brian Zahn, Paul Young, and more by your side to help. I know I would have loved that on my journey. Well, now you can. Head on over to choiracademy.com, link will be in the show notes, and register for their Square 2 class using the promo code Liminal, and you will get 10% off. This course and community are designed to help you navigate your journey with wisdom and support, all because you're a fan of the Liminal Living podcast. Ministry leaders, how do you heal from the burnout, loneliness, and the relentless weight of leadership? Kaneo Center exists for you. For 5 years, Kaneo has walked with over 500 ministry leaders through their darkest seasons, offering a rare blend of compassionate coaching, therapeutically informed practices, and Jesus-centered renewal. Kaneo is launching new 24-week cohorts now, where you'll join a small group of leaders for weekly video coaching, guided curriculum, and reflections to rebuild your resilience. The cohort all ends with a retreat in Puerto Rico. As a Kaneo coach myself, I've seen how this space transforms lives. And for Liminal Living listeners, mention Liminal in your application at thecaneocenter.com/cohort to claim $100 off your cohort experience. You've poured into others, let Kaneo pour into you. If you're in a dark night or deconstruction, you know how vital it is to ground yourself in intentional practice. That's why I'm thrilled to partner with the Monk Manual, a journaling system inspired by monastic wisdom and backed by science. The Monk Manual is a daily journal companion for reflection, purpose, and aligning your actions with your deepest values. Whether you're rebuilding after deconstruction or seeking clarity in transition, this tool turns liminality into grounded growth. And now, Liminal Living listeners can save 10% on their Monk Manual using the code Liminal over at monkmanual.com/liminal. And remember, the wisdom of liminal spaces lies in how we journey through them. So do it with intention. And now back to our show. So, yes, I had to, there are still, you're never going to be free from social expectation, and that's fine. You just have to find a place where you can authentically be yourself and say what you need to say without being false or hiding or lying about it. And in the church spaces, that's really hard to find. It's not as hard to find outside of church spaces, although you'll have some in like education spaces or, work spaces. There are some, but it never in the degrees that I've experienced in church spaces. So I outgrew that a long time ago, and then traveled for a long time trying to figure out how do I stay in this space in a way that doesn't cause me to compromise my own soul and authenticity. And so it took a while, but I'm here now, so it's cool.
Wow. Yeah, well, it's amazing that you've finally found an actual place where you can express to some degree your actual values, yet still provide valuable basically philosophical teachings. That's really good. Now we're sort of getting to the end of our time here, so I'm going to ask one or two final questions before we end this off here.
Okay.
So, what is the most impactful advice that you could give to someone who is searching for meaning? Like, what is, out of anything you could give someone, what is the most beneficial, most impactful advice you could give them in their search for meaning?
In search for meaning, I would say to find someone that is further along on the journey than you, that that can help you find the right questions to ask. Like, don't find somebody who you think has all the right answers, because they're just gonna, It's the same thing as you already have. They're just going to have different vocabulary.
Yeah.
And when humans grow and evolve and change, and then it's harder and harder, the more you suppress your authentic self, then the less you will be able to recognize it as you get older. And so you have to find somebody that will help you ask the correct questions that you should be asking. If you just find someone who's handing you different answers than the one you have, then you've just found a different version of the thing you already have. So you have to find someone who can help you find the questions you should be asking. And that's a little bit harder because we're all about the answers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like when we are searching for basically life and meaning, we tend to search for things that we already understand and things that we already know and are already in our knowledge, whether that's consciously or not. I don't really know. But we tend to gravitate towards things that are familiar. And really, in your search for life, you should be looking for the most unfamiliar concepts and the most new and groundbreaking things to yourself. And so we kind of just gravitate to the same norms, the same ideas that we already know.
And like as soon as you transcend something that you used to have, you have to learn how to include what you used to have, because you can't reject parts of yourself, even your past. And so you can never become something entirely different. You will always just become the neo version of the thing you rejected. So you have to learn how to transcend what you currently are, but also include what you are into the next phase of your life, so that you are integrating yourself into a combined whole without alienating parts of yourself and your past and all that kind of stuff. Or you'll just become a neo version of who you are. And that is same thing, different day.
Wow. Yeah, that gave me a lot of things to think about right there. Wow. That was actually really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate this talk. I appreciate you making the time to actually have a 30-minute discussion with me. This was really, really beneficial, and I appreciate this.
That was a lot of fun. This was a whole lot of fun. So thanks for inviting me.
You had some really good answers to my questions. I appreciate that.
Yes.
And by the way, if y'all